Well, I'm sure a lot of you have heard the advice to learn from your mistakes or even from other people's mistakes. And that is a great way to learn, but I'm going to tell you something else that's even better. All right. When you are looking at learning from your plays, whether that is by talking out loud, co oping with somebody, getting a coaching, reviewing your games, streaming, and then getting feedback, playing with friends, playing with teammates, whatever it is that you are doing to learn and improve, if you are trying to get better and improve, I really recommend that you don't just try to learn from your mistakes. Don't go back and only review games that you lost and see what you could have done better. There's a couple of things that can hinder you because you do only looking at your losses. The first is sometimes those losses are purely because you hit a bad matchup. And it might just come down to that. Sometimes, maybe not. Maybe there are things you can do in that game, even in bad matchups, that you can learn from. And sometimes RNG does take effect. There's going to be things like your opponent getting high rolls. There's going to be things like you not drawing the cards that you need for your deck to do what it wants to do. And maybe that's why you lost. There will be games like that, and those are fine to review. There's definitely lessons to be learned there. But I definitely recommend you also see what you can learn from games that you won. People don't do this enough, and I think there's a lot to learn from it. If you review games that you won, you can start to recognize a couple of patterns in reasons why you might have won games. Maybe some of those games you just drew all of your best cards to play on curve. Sure, that's probably going to happen, just like some of your losses were because you didn't draw the cards that you needed. And that's the variation of this game. Any card game really is going to have those variables. But when you look back at games that you won, you need to start looking at those games that you won and recognize why you were winning those games. Was it a good matchup for you? Did you hold off on using a removal one turn longer so that your opponent played a little bit more into it? Was it that you just actually played minions on the board instead of holding them for a battle cry or for maximum advantage later in the game? Playing them on the board early actually got you the damage to your opponent's face that you needed. Maybe it's something as simple as that. Maybe you were doing really well with your mulligan and recognizing what your opponent was going to do throughout the game. But recognizing the things that you did really well is kind of twofold. First of all, you're going to start to recognize things that help you win games so that you can keep winning games by doing that. But also, instead of just looking at your mistakes and always focusing on the things that you do wrong, which again is something that you can improve on and a way to learn, but you're also taking a toll on that if you don't have a good sense of self confidence or just being able to take care of yourself when you're looking at mistakes. If you look at those mistakes and you just spend the whole time beating yourself up over every mistake that you made, or ultimately it leads you down a spiral of thinking that you're a terrible player because you made all those mistakes, in the long run, that's actually going to harm you even more. And then it's going to cause tilt. Because then the next time you make a mistake, you're going to just beat yourself up over it and cause yourself to go into like a tilt spiral. And it's just going to chain from that game to the next. And then every time that you make a mistake, you will associate that with you being a terrible player. But when you take things from games that you won and you take some of those lessons that you learn, say, hey, I did this really well, it creates more of a balance of saying, hey, I do have strengths. I know how to play some of these things really well. And you can even see that in people who know how to play certain decks really well. They know how to play those decks inside and out. Maybe they struggle when they try to switch to a different deck or a different archetype, or when the meta changes. But the more that they learn the patterns that they have that help them get those wins, the better they are in the long run. And that's ultimately what it is about if you're trying to improve. It's over the long run. So I really recommend, if you are going back and looking at games, especially replays, or if you're watching streamers or watching tournaments, really also take a look at the things that players do well or that you did yourself well in those games that caused you to actually win, and start recognizing those patterns. Thank you so much for watching, and for even more tips, tricks, and strategies, make sure you check out this playlist here.